What's up, dude? Hello. Oh, and now my dog is barking. Oh my gosh, okay. Give me like 2 seconds. Okay, super sorry about that interruption. My sister came to visit me, so I am just now getting back to this video. Sorry about that. It is now nighttime, as you can probably tell. Okay, so let's just jump into our story today about Daniel LaPlante, the boy who lived in the wall. Now, I'm sure you guys have heard about this story, and it's just a really popular case, but I wanted to cover it because I didn't know much about it. Daniel was born May 15th, 1970. He lived with his mother and stepfather in Townsend, Massachusetts. He was sexually and psychologically abused by a lot of the adults in his life, but mainly his stepdad. The family's home was reportedly surrounded by junk and old cars, so not real great living conditions for Daniel. He went to St. Bernard's High School in Fitchburg. Danny, as he went by, struggled with school socially. He was dyslexic as well, and that made school academically very difficult for him, which makes total sense. Most of his classmates described him as creepy or weird. Students and faculty said that he was a loner and not very friendly. Now, I know this paints him in a light where we should feel bad for him, but don't fall into that trap because the things that he does later are just absolutely horrific. School officials referred him to see a psychiatrist because of his off behavior and poor hygiene. He refused to try to make himself more presentable and to grow as a human being, so he was kind of stunted in that way. He was diagnosed with hyperactivity disorder, and the following year the psychiatrist also sexually abused Danny. This happened during his sessions, so that too is just incredibly sad, and I really do feel for him when it comes to that. As an early teenager, Danny would spend his evenings breaking into people's homes in the area and stealing their valuables. By 15, he was breaking into people's homes and taking things as well as moving items around, so it was obvious that someone had been in their home but not making it immediately obvious. Eventually, it just turned into a mind game to mess with people. In 1986, he got the phone number of a family's home in the area that he most likely had broken into at some point, and this is unconfirmed at the moment, so this is just speculation that he got the home's phone number by breaking into their home at some point. The family that lived in the house was a father and 2 daughters. Both daughters, Annie and Jessica, were close to Danny's age, and they began visiting with him on the phone. He told them that he was a good-looking, athletic, blonde, and well-educated boy who lived in the area. Also, I have to say, I don't think that if someone just randomly called my house that I would be willing to have conversations with them. That would be an immediate no for me. However, this was a different time, so I guess, they saw no issue with it. Annie and Danny became very well acquainted and eventually arranged to go out on a date. Annie was of course surprised to see that Danny did not look like how he described himself over the phone. Instead, he was disheveled, greasy, and had dark hair. He was not attractive. However, Annie still went on the date with him and they went to a local fair. Annie made an excuse to go home earlier. During the date, Annie told Danny about her mother who had recently passed away due to cancer, and he took great interest in hearing the details of her mother's death. Annie did not want to go out on more dates with him, which honestly I can't say that I would want to either. The same evening that Annie and Jessica tried to contact their mother with a seance in their basement, this was more out of amusement, the girls heard rhythmic knocking against their bedroom walls while they slept. The girls thought that their seance was successful and they spoke to the unseen force as if they were talking to their mother one more time. They asked questions that were replied to with knocks on the wall. For several nights this continued, but it became so irregular that it started to mess with the girls' sleep. Eventually, items around the home started to go missing. I think we've heard this before. Furniture would be moved, items would be arranged on a table, and then strewn on the floor the next day. Annie and Jessica thought that they were being haunted by a mean demon and not by their mother, like they had originally thought. Their dad, Brian, actually thought that it was the girls causing all of this to happen in the home. They told Brian what had happened and that they thought they allowed a demon into their home, but he refused to believe it. In January of 1987, the strange knocking started again while Annie and Jessica were alone in the front room of their home one evening. The girls were starting to feel insane because the knocking happened so often. However, this evening, the knocking seemed to be coming from the basement. Armed with a kitchen knife, the girls started moving towards the noise. When they creeped downstairs, they saw, "I'm in your room, come and find me," written on the basement walls in blood red. The girls instantly ran out of the house and asked a neighbor for help. When Brian came home, the girls told him what happened right away. Again, however, Brian thought that it was the girls doing all of this and he didn't believe them. So he sent them to counseling because he thought that they were just struggling with the loss of their mother and they were acting out because of it. Now, I could see this possibly being something that a kid would do, but the fact that they were so freaked, I would not have thought that. A few weeks later, the girls heard the knocking sounds again, but they were coming from Annie's bedroom wall this time. When they entered the room, they were welcomed with red words on the wall saying, "I'm back. Find me if you can." Again, they told Brian, and again, he did not believe them. But this time when he came home after getting a call from the girls from the neighbor's house again, he found more of the house was messed up than what the girls had originally said. After seeing this, he finally believed them. I can't believe it took this much, honestly. When he entered Annie's room, there was more writing on the wall saying, "Marry me." And on the other side of the room was a young boy dressed in a dress that had belonged to Brian's deceased wife. He was also wearing her makeup and a blonde wig, and he was holding a hatchet. It was Danny. Brian and him got into an altercation, but ultimately Danny got away. Brian called the police to come and investigate, and they found out how Danny was able to escape almost into thin air. The writing on the walls was written in ketchup. The police also found a hidden crawl space behind a cupboard that was built into the wall of Annie's bedroom. When they opened up the crawl space, Danny was curled up inside. He was instantly placed under arrest. The police concluded that Danny had been living in the walls of the home by tunneling around through the walls. There were multiple peepholes in different rooms so he could watch Annie no matter which room she was in. The following year, Danny was put into a juvenile facility where he stayed until October 1987. Almost immediately after being released, Danny began breaking into houses again. During one of his robberies, he got 2 handguns from a neighbor's house. On December 1st, 1987, Danny broke into the Gustafsons' home about a half-mile away from his own home. So all of this was happening within the neighborhood that he was living in, which is incredibly risky because you run the risk of people knowing who you are and seeing you do it. However, Priscilla Gustafson, 33, and her 2 young kids, Abigail and William, were home. When Priscilla's husband came home after work, he discovered Priscilla lying face down in her bed with her blood splattered on her pillows. She had been sexually assaulted by Danny and then shot multiple times in the head at point-blank range. Now, this could be classified as overkill, which means that it was an emotional murder. So I don't know if maybe it's because Danny was weird and not very attractive and girls didn't talk to him. So maybe that's why he had done all of this to Priscilla, that he had overkilled her. Like, he did more than what was necessary in order to unalive her. Andrew called the police upon finding his wife murdered, and then he found his 2 children in different bathtubs. It didn't take long for the police to connect Danny to the murders. However, he had already fled. He was a few towns over and had broken into a woman's home and stolen her car and kidnapped her. She was able to escape, thankfully. Danny was spotted by someone who had seen his photo on the news, and he was found hiding in a dumpster 48 hours after they started looking for him. When he was searched, Abigail Gustafson's hair was found in his sock, so this proved that he was involved in her murder. He was sentenced to 3 life sentences for the murder of the Gustafsons. From 1988 to 2014, Danny had tried to sue the prison system for violating his religious rights since he was allegedly a practicing Satanist. So he was saying that they refused to give him the materials that he needed in order to practice his religion, but he was never successful. Danny tried to appeal his sentence. He seemed to feel no remorse for the crimes that he committed, but in 2017 he stated, "I do not have the words to fully express my profound sorrow, but I am truly sorry for the harm I have caused. From the very essence of who I am, from the depth of my soul, I am sorry." Now, should we believe him, or should we recognize that he is a manipulative human being and should never be let out of jail? Andrew Gustafson had passed away before hearing that Danny's appeal had been denied, but on his deathbed he supposedly claimed, "Don't ever let him out, he should rot in prison." In which case, I have to agree. I don't think that Danny should ever be let out. As far as I know, Danny is still alive today in 2022, but that is where our story ends. Thank you guys so much for listening. If you enjoyed this video, please be sure to give it a like, and don't forget to subscribe to my channel if you want to see more true crime stories. I cover these stories very quickly in bullet points, so that way if you at least just want to know the gist of a story, you can watch this quick 10 to 15 minute video and understand it instead of sitting and watching a 45-minute video if you don't have time for that, or if you just can't stomach hearing every single detail of a case. Now, if you guys have cases that you would like me to cover in the same sort of format that I have today, please be sure to comment the case names in the comments down below. My case sources are linked in the description box down below if you would like to read a little bit more on your own about this case. But for me, that is it today. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will be back on Thursday with another True Crime Courier video. Bye guys.